my name is Mark Wright. I'm the president of VIA San Francisco, and I'm here to talk to you today about the VIA Ultimate Toolkit deal. This is a 2018 promotion for the first half of the year that really focuses on helping hairdressers work first in a healthy way and secondly in an efficient way. And I think the more that we can help hairdressers achieve their goal of getting their work done efficiently and with high quality results, and in doing that with a healthy body posture in the salon, the more we can do that, the more hairdressers appreciate the VIA brand and the VIA product. So with that in mind, let's talk first of all about the ergonomics of VIA shears. So the two shears that are part of this promotion are the classic fixed-handled crane scissor and the spin and slip collection of rotating crane-handled scissors. Now, let's start with a refresher of what a crane handle is. And a crane handle is any scissor where the handle angles downward in relation to the blades. So when the blades are horizontal, the handle actually angles downward. And the purpose of this, when compared with a more traditional handle, which is in a straight line through the center, is the fact that the crane handle lets you work with your elbow in a lower position. In order for me to achieve this same cutting position with the old-fashioned style handle, I have to elevate my arm, and now I'm working like this as opposed to this. So this is a much more comfortable body posture, and it's what VIA shears allow a stylist to always achieve. Also, because this is offset, I'm not pulling my thumb back as far, so the thumb sets farther forward. There's a little buildup that even spreads the distance between the finger and the thumb more. So the crane handle is a very healthy handle, and that's the classic shear. Now the other shear that's part of this promotion is the spin shear, and spin is a rotating version of the crane, still angled downward in relation to the blade, but now the thumb rotates. So again, if we go back to our comparison with the more traditional handle, now we have something more to look at. Not only do we have a big difference in the elbow position on these two shears, but look at this. Both blades are open all the way. They could cut all the way to the pivot. I'm going to close the blade, and you can see that this one finishes closing while this one still has 2/3 of the blade to close. So that's the difference in the thumb movement that it takes to open and close this shear versus the open and closing the old-fashioned handle. So the rotating handle, because of the wide spacing between the finger and thumb, cuts down on the thumb movement, and because of the crane handle, allows you to work with your elbow down. But where it's different is for certain techniques where you're cutting the length in particular. For example, if I were to go to cut a section on top of the head, and I've got the hair up here above the head, with a fixed handle shear, I would be up here like this. But with a rotating shear, I can cut that same line like that with my wrist straight and my elbow down. So that's the advantage of the rotating thumb. Same thing if I was going to cut into the fringe on this client. Instead of here with my elbow up in space, I can cut into the fringe with my elbow up against my body in a much more controlled way. I can cut the bottom of a bob line instead of this position. I can be in this position, again, much more comfortable. So the rotating handle has those advantages over and above the fixed handle, and that can be a huge plus. Now, I always like to present the rotating thumb first because that way I can expose the stylist to those benefits, cutting on top of the head here versus here, point cutting around the face here versus here, and so on. If I'm dealing with a customer, though, who really doesn't want a rotating thumb, the good news is the cutaway on the back of the classic handle serves much the same purpose. I can cut that same line on top of the head with my elbow lower because I don't have to stick my thumb down into the hole. I can lay my thumb into the side of it. Same thing point cutting around the fringe. So because of the ergonomic design of both of these handles, a stylist can really do most of their work with their elbow down. But the rotating thumb does give you some advantages for back cutting and face framing and things like that. So I still recommend it. Plus the more open grip is really ideal for the stylist's hand. So that's the concept of the ergonomics behind the two shears. Now let's talk about the functions of the different shears that are part of the promotion. First of all, we recommend a stylist have two different lengths of shears. Something like a 5.5, which they could use for cutting the hair between their fingers because they really only need enough blade to get to the second knuckle in order to be able to function with the shear. So a 5.5 for most stylists is a good length for that in-hand cutting. But not all the work that a stylist does is done this way where you're cutting palm to palm. Very often you're cutting over the top of your knuckles where a longer blade can be an advantage, or you're cutting scissor over comb. So again, if we pick up a comb and we put our 5.5-inch shear up against it, you can see that we can cover very little of the length of the comb. So if I was going to connect around the head, I'm working with panels that are about this wide with a 5.5-inch shear. If I move up to a 7-inch shear, all of a sudden now I can cover much greater distance. So now I can cover a panel this wide, and that means less connections as I move around the head. That's one place where the longer blade is an advantage. Another place is cutting on the skin. If I'm cutting on the neckline with a long blade, I can slide in there quite a ways before my hand starts coming in contact with that client. I've got this much blade where I can cut off that length. Whereas with a shorter handle, or a shorter blade rather, I can only go that far, so I can only get that far in before I have to elevate the hair away from the body or get my hand involved. So a longer blade cutting on the skin is an advantage. A longer blade scissor over comb is an advantage. Also deep point cutting, a longer blade can go in deeper. A longer blade also when cutting around that client's face, you're back here with the long blade, whereas with a short blade, you're right up in your client's face, bumping her nose as you trim her bangs. So that's why we recommend that stylists have two different lengths of shears. So in addition to, having a long blade for scissor over comb or for cutting on the skin or point cutting around the face and techniques like that, it's really good to just have a secondary pair of shears because you never know when you might drop your favorite shear and you need something to work with. But rather than have a second pair of 5.5-inch shears in your drawer for that kind of experience, why not have the longer pair that can give you all that extra functionality, and it can be your backup if your other shear gets dropped and damaged. So that's another good reason for having more than one pair. So once a stylist has both of those lengths of shears, the next thing that they need is something to help them break up weight lines and remove weight within a haircut. Ideally in a way that doesn't create volume that you're not trying to create. And that's really where a blending shear comes in. And of course, VIA makes the most amazing blending shears in the world because we make what we call seamless blenders. And a seamless shear works on this principle. The straight blade is blunt, so it acts only to push the hair across razor sharp teeth. And the teeth don't have anything to hold the hair. There's no little V's or anything in the ends of the teeth. So the hair slides across the teeth as it's cut, and no two hairs are cut to the same length. Now the result of that means that you can go into a section and cut anywhere you want and comb out, and not only will you not create any kind of a visible line in the hair, but you'll also be able to comb out without any drag because the straight blade being blunt, when the shear is closed, there's nothing sharp exposed to the blade. So a seamless blender is going to allow a stylist to remove weight anywhere they want. They can go back in over and over again and not get in trouble. So I think whether it's the fixed handle classic or the slip shear with the rotating handle, every stylist should have one of our seamless blenders because it will make them a better hairdresser. They'll be able to remove weight anywhere within a head without creating any lines and without any drag, without pulling the client's hair. I would encourage you to put those shears into stylists' hands as you talk to them in the salon and let them try them and point out to them that they want to close the blade all the way before they start moving. That way they'll get the full effect of how smooth this shear is combing out. So seamless blender is probably the first thing I would add once my client had two different lengths of cutting shears. Now the next tool that I might add would be one of our 14 tooth point cut texture shears. Now this works on the same principle of the blunt blade pushing the hair across the razor sharp teeth, but the teeth are wider and the spaces between them are wider as well. The advantage of that, or the result of that, is that you're going to get visible separation in the hair. You're going to create negative space, but you're not going to see the point of origin of the negative space because no two hairs are cut to the same length. So unlike other texture shears that other manufacturers make where you cut a castle wall into the hair, this shear is going to create that negative space and that separation without you seeing the point of origin of the negative space, because the hair is cut on little sweeps as it slides across the 14 different cutting blades on this shear. So this can replace point cutting for a stylist to a large degree, and that's going to save them not only a huge amount of time, but it's going to save them all that Pac-Manning with their thumb and wear and tear on their hand. And here's another thing, it's going to save the wear and tear on the tip of their shears. If they're all day point cutting into section after section, they're dulling out the tip of whatever shear they're using to do that very quickly. And then they're having to pay $30 or $40 or more to have the shear resharpened each time. And they might have to have it sharpened 3 or 4 times in a year because of all that point cutting that they're doing. Whereas if they start doing the texturizing using tools that are built for that, like this 14 tooth or a 10 tooth that I'm about to show you, you're going to find that they don't dull the tip of their shears out nearly as often. Now all of a sudden their cutting shear can go a year or a year and a half between sharpening, and the savings of all those extra sharpenings plus the wear and tear that takes on the scissor, because each time you sharpen it you're grinding some metal away, really makes these shears start to pay for themselves because of the multiplying effect of spreading the work over multiple shears as opposed to trying to do everything with one shear. So that's a cool thing to think about. Now the next shear that we could talk about is a brand new model, and that is the new 10 tooth texturizer, and it's available both in the spin version and the classic version. And this 10 tooth shear is like a more aggressive version of the 14 tooth. So where would you use that? Well, if you had a client that had thicker, coarser hair, you might need this to create the same effect you'd get on finer hair with the 14 tooth. So this can be the go-to tool when you're working in heavier, coarser hair. It can also be the go-to tool when you're trying to do an entire haircut with a texturizer. Because this shear takes more hair, you can cut, the length just by taking 2 or 3 cuts on each section, and all of a sudden now you're cutting hair that looks like it just grew into the shape because there's not a blunt line anywhere. So this can be a really versatile texturizing tool that can add, again, another arrow in the quiver for a stylist who's trying to be efficient and get their work done in an intelligent, even way. Now, the next blade is another brand new one, and that is the mixed blade texture shear that involves having a wide tooth and then a couple of narrow teeth and a wide tooth and a couple of narrow teeth. And what that does is it creates 3-dimensional texture within the hair. Now all of a sudden we're not necessarily creating a negative space here, 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 and here, but we're creating a negative space, we're lightening the hair next to it, creating another negative space, lightening the hair next to it, so that we're really creating a very natural looking 3-dimensional type of a texture into the hair. It's also, again, more aggressive, so in coarser hair, it can be a tool to work with. It can be a tool to do whole haircuts with as well. So the mixed texture shear is another tool that adds to that hairdresser's arsenal of tools that they can use to make themselves more efficient. And then finally, we have the slide cutting shear. And that's available again in either handle, either the fixed handle classic or the slip version with the rotating thumb. Now, the beauty of a slide cutting shear is that finally you have a purpose-built tool for what I like to call motion cutting techniques where you're moving the blades against the hair. And the reason it's so important to have a purpose-built tool for that is that in the past we've always tried to do that kind of work with a precision blade. And the problem is when you try to slide cut with a blade that's designed for cutting straight lines, the way that that blade achieves that straight line is by gripping the cuticle of the hair so it doesn't slide away as the blade closes and cuts it off. Well, if you slide that type of blade against hair, it's going to be trying to grip the cuticle, and what's going to give is the cuticle. You're going to peel the cuticle right off your client's hair, especially working dry. You know, many people have slid cut with precision shears for years in wet hair, but now that we're doing so much work dry, that's why purpose-built shears really became a necessity. Because in dry hair, these will just peel the, you know, a regular precision shear will just peel the cuticle right off the hair. And you really do need these wider blades that are curved away from each other that push the hair and release the hair away. So with this, now you can slide cut with total control. You don't have to Pac-Man your way down a section. You just slowly close as you slide, and you can remove weight anywhere on a head that you'd like. So a slide cutting shear gives you so much more control over slide cutting. The faster you close, the more hair it takes. The slower you close, the less hair it takes. You can also point cut with these, and you'll get a really soft point cut where you won't create any kind of a blunt line, but you'll get a beautiful soft end because the shear doesn't cut hard lines. It pushes the hair away. So a purpose-built slide cutting shear is just another really outstanding shear for every stylist to own. And of course, once you own one, you'll find yourself doing a lot more motion cutting techniques. You'll find that you can do the flick cutting where you're doing this kind of motion against the hair much better with a slide cutting shear that isn't trying to pull at the hair as you're doing it. So that's the 7 shears that really make up the ideal toolkit. 2 different lengths of cutting shears, and then the 23 tooth, the 14 tooth, the 10 tooth, and the mixed blade in terms of texturizing, and then the slide cutting shear to put the final touch on every haircut by sculpting in the last little bits of movement and texture. And you can do that again dry with the dry slide cut shear. And of course they're amazing in wet hair as well. So that's the shears that we think now should be in every stylist toolkit. There's one other little wrinkle though. We have actually last year introduced our dry Evolution Shear. This is a specially designed precision cutting shear for cutting dry hair. Now it happens to be fantastic in wet hair too. It's just a wonderful, wonderful blade to cut with, but it doesn't move the hair nearly as much when you're cutting dry as a regular precision shear. So a stylist might want to upgrade the longer one of their 2 cutting shears to one of the dry Evolution shears, and we make these also in both fixed handle and the swivel. And we also, by the way, make all these shears both right and left-handed. So, you know, this is a promotion that can appeal to every stylist, and they can upgrade one of the cutting shears in their deal to a dry Evolution shear for just an extra $100, which is the difference in the retail price of the 2 shears. So that's a fantastic program. So that's the concept. We have the 7 different shears. We have the dry Evolution shears that can be substituted for other cutting shears to give it a higher level of precision. And all of that is available in this deal. Now, another really cool thing you'll notice is that all of the classic shears and the spin and slip shears are all $269.95. Doesn't matter what length they are. Doesn't matter whether they're fixed or rotating. They're all the same price. Not even lefties pay more. It's $269 right or left-handed, and that's the first time ever that a manufacturer has done that. So I'm really excited to be the company leading the way on that. The dry Evolution shears, either fixed or rotating, are now also the same price, $369.95. And so that's again a great opportunity for stylists to choose the shear that they want. We did this because we believe so strongly in the rotating handle that even though it costs us a little bit more to make, we didn't want to discourage anyone from trying it by charging more for it. So we decided to sell it for the same price as the fixed handle model in an effort to show how much we believe in it, and hopefully your customers will appreciate that. So that is the deal, and here is the deal prices, which are phenomenal. So first of all, An individual shear is going to be either $269.95 for either the classic or the spin, or $369.95 for the dry evolution. That's the regular salon price. But here's the cool thing. We're going to give them a beautiful 4-shear zipper case that's worth $20. And we're going to give them a maintenance kit that has a chamois, it's got finger rings, it's got detention adjustment coin, it's got an oil pen, and even an instruction booklet on how to take care of your shears. That's a $20 value. It even comes in a little waterproof box that can hold an iPhone, which is kind of cool. And then finally, we're going to give them this great little scissor stand. And I love the scissor stand because stylists, really have a hard time avoiding damaging their shears when they're laying them out on the station where they might get bumped off and knocked to the ground. Now the stylist can just keep all their shears in the little shear stand, pick up and go, and put them right back in there. One other really cool thing is on the back of this, it's marked soiled. So state board guys come in and complain that, oh, you shouldn't have your shears in there. You say, no, those are just my dirty shears. See, it's marked soiled just like it's supposed to be. It is cleanable, so you can take out the insert that holds the shears and clean it in soap and water and put it back in there to keep this thing nice. And this is a perfect addition to every station. And it's even got the phone number for our sharpening center right on the front of it, so when they need service, they know who to call to take care of their blades. So all that comes free with the purchase of an individual shear. Pretty cool. It's a $100 value. There's also, by the way, a $40 off 2-for-1 sharpening coupon. So that's all free with the purchase of an individual shear. Where it gets really cool, though, is the second shear comes at a great discount. So the second shear, 2-shear deal, goes from $269.95 to $429. So now the savings are more than $210 on that deal. You're saving $100 on an individual shear. Moving up to a 3-shear deal is $579. That saves the stylist $330 plus. And a 4-shear, 5-shear, 6-shear, and 7-shear deal, the savings grow till at the 7-shear deal they're saving $830. On the purchase of those 7 shears. So that's more than, $125 a piece. So it's pretty phenomenal. And by the way, if a stylist buys a 5, 6, or 7 shear deal, we're going to give them the VIA $40 10 shear case that can hold all those shears for them. So they'll always have a case that can hold all the shears that they buy. So this is an incredible opportunity for a hairdresser to build a super efficient collection of tools to do their work. And think about this. If a stylist could save, say, 5 minutes on every haircut, that's conservative. Really, a stylist doing a lot of point cutting might save 10 or more minutes on a haircut with these tools. But say you just save 5 minutes. What if you took that 5 minutes and you educated your client about, this is the brush I used on your hair. This is the shampoo and conditioner I used on your hair. This is the styling aids that I used on your hair. And show them how to use it. That wouldn't take more than 5 minutes. It would probably take 2 minutes. You'd probably still have time to go have a drink of water in the break room before your next client sits down. The bottom line is, though, if you took that little extra time that you save on every client to educate them more, think about how that would impact your retail sales and your client satisfaction. That's just one way a stylist could use the extra time. You can talk to stylists about this concept and they'll come up with all kinds of ways to use the extra time themselves. The point is, it's time for hairdressers to realize that the investment they make in these extra tools that make their work so much easier and make the quality of their work look so much better really comes back to them in terms of less wear and tear on individual shears. A collection like this, if they had all 7 of these tools, they would probably be set for their whole career. Certainly on the specialty shears, they'd never wear them out, and they probably would never wear out their main cutting shears either, because spreading the work out over all those tools will make all of them last almost indefinitely, especially if we're taking care of them. And when I've talked about making you more efficient, I've also every time said, and making the quality of your work look better. And this is something we truly believe at VIA, because these specialty tools we're making that don't create any lines and don't create any unnatural marks in the hair, but instead create just natural looking texture and movement within a haircut, really do, for most stylists, improve the output of the results that they're getting. You know, we get feedback from stylists all the time saying that their clients call them up after they start using these tools, and the client is saying, "What did you do different? My hair's growing out nicer than it ever has before." And the answer is, these tools don't make mistakes. These tools don't cut hard notches in anywhere, which you might do point cutting, and that's the one spot that pops out weird 3 weeks into a haircut and makes the client feel like the haircut's falling apart. So not only can we make them healthier with the elbow down, hand open kind of body positioning that our shears provide, we can make them more efficient, which can hopefully make their clients happier, both with the result of the haircut and the education they get along with it, and all of their tools end up lasting longer. So that's really the message to take to your customers with the Ultimate Toolkit deal. And I wish you great success. We're going to be running this deal through the whole first half of 2018, and I really hope that you'll show it to all your clients. The key thing with all these specialty shears is just put them in people's hands. Any one of these texture shears, the slide cutting shear, the dry evolution shear, all of these shears will sell themselves with 1 or 2 cuts if you just take the time to put them into a stylist's hands while they're working on a client. And you can look for ways to do that by just watching what's happening in the salon. If you see somebody with their elbow up in the air, show them a shear that'll drop their elbow down. If you see somebody using a thinning shear, show them what a seamless blender will do in comparison with a thinning shear. If you actually do that, if you take them from a regular thinning shear to a seamless blender on a client, there's probably a 60% or higher chance that the client will turn to the stylist and say, "You should buy that shear. I can feel the difference in the way it's cutting." If you see a stylist point cutting, put the point cut texture shears in their hand. If it's on a client with a big mop of hair, maybe have them try a 10 tooth. If it's on a client with finer hair, have them try the 14 tooth. The bottom line is, these texture shears will sell themselves if you just put them in stylist hands and have them cut on a client with it. So again, I wish you great success. I'm sure this Ultimate Toolkit deal will be a big success for anyone who really takes it out, walks into the salon, and shows them what it's all about. Thanks for watching.